God's plan rolled right along just like he wanted it to. You remember we talked about when Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, God said to the snake, I'm going to put enmity or trouble between you and the seed of this woman. He will bruise your head. Oh, you'll bruise his heel, but he will bruise your head. And the seed of the woman was indicating that Christ's child would not be of human birth from a man's viewpoint, but rather would be the Son of God produced by a virgin woman. And that's the way it worked out. Predicted 4,000 years or more ahead of time. We've noticed that Abraham eventually was selected to be the great-grandfather, you might say, of Christ, but he had no children. And God promised him at age 65 that you'll have a child, and this child will have so many children you can't count them as you can't count stars. Though he was 99 years old, he still didn't have a child, not one. And his wife, 89, had very little prospect that she could produce a child. But God said, don't worry, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to have a miracle happen here. And at age 190, respectively, little Isaac was born. But Isaac didn't catch on the idea either, because he was 40 years old and still unmarried. And he had his first child, twins, at age 60. It wasn't going any too fast, was it? We are now a couple thousand years from Adam and Eve, another couple thousand years from Jesus. But God is saying, I've got it all under control. You think God is slow? Sometimes. You think God will do it on your time schedule? No. But he will do it. He will not fail in any way. He is a faithful creator, the Bible says. And so we are ready to step into the era of the prophets, like Isaiah. Isaiah now cuts off about 300 years from all those ancient times, and he is now saying, you know, unto us a child is born. Well, Isaiah, can you give us more information? We're just hearing about a child. Yes, I'll tell you about a child. This child will have a government on his shoulder. Oh yeah, we heard about that from David. David, you might remember, told Nathan he would like to build God a temple. God didn't have a house. God had a tent. Now, it's different than having a tent in Iowa. Having a tent in Palestine is like having a tent in Louisiana or Mississippi, where it's a little warmer, and you don't have to worry so much about necessarily all the blizzards that might come by. But it was a tent nonetheless. And David said, I live in a house. Why can't God have a house? And Nathan said, build it. Can you imagine a preacher not telling someone, build it, when people want to donate $1 million or whatever? Build it, man, build it, sure. But God told him, tell him no. It's not my idea. Indeed, Solomon will build a house, but not David. And then in 2 Samuel 7, he made his prediction to David, quoted again by Isaiah, that there's going to be a person that will come that will have a government on his shoulders, and of his kingdom and of his reign there shall be no end. How is that? There will be a king that will have no end. Now what kind of king is that? David ruled 40 years, and what happened? Died. Saul before him had ruled 40 years. What happened to him? He died. Solomon reigned 40 years after David. What happened to him? He died. What happened to all the 21 and 19 kings that ruled north and south? Every single one of them died. But the prediction was there's going to be a king who will reign forever. What does that tell you? Well, that tells you that this man must be more than human. He is a divine personage, and Jesus was that divine personage. And so David said, wow, you're going to put somebody on my throne that will rule forever? Yes. Now when Mary heard the announcement by the angel, Mary, you have found favor with God. She said, what do you mean? The angel said, you're going to have a person, a child. He will be great, and he will have the throne of his father David and rule forever and ever. So we have Isaiah reminding us 700 years before Christ of a king to come. But Isaiah was more particular. He said he will grow like a root out of a dry ground, or a shoot, actually, we would call it in English. So, boy, that's hard ground. That's good old Iowa clay. But out of that comes the most beautiful plant. Well, how did that plant even grow in this hard, hard dirt? Well, it did. Jesus grew up in Nazareth, which was a hard city, a place that they put down. No good thing could come from this place, but Jesus did. The most wonderful person of all time grew up in one of the most worst places of all time. A root, a shoot out of a dry ground. It says, you know what? They will take him and lead him like a lamb to the slaughter. And Isaiah began to predict the steps of what was going to happen. They'll beat him, and he will say nothing. He'll be silent like a lamb to the slaughter. He's predicting the very trial of Jesus Christ 700 years before it happened. And then he predicted an astounding thing. He said, he will be buried with the wealthy. He was an itinerant preacher who had nothing. Judas had the money bag. Jesus had no money on him to buy anything. He had no family that was wealthy in any way. And he had a death that was a criminal death. He was certainly faced with almost some kind of a non-burial or whatever. And somebody stepped up at the last minute and said, I have a tomb. I have had it carved out of a rock, and he can have that tomb. It's expensive. I'd like for him to have it. And Joseph donated his tomb just like Isaiah said he would, 700 years before it happened. So God has been working this down a little bit more. Is God still on God's still on the plan. God hasn't abandoned it. He never will. When God has a master plan, that's going to be carried out by his will and his design, and all kinds of things will come together to make it right. You can be sure of it. If he promises it, he will be sure. Then comes Daniel, 100 years later. Daniel comes along and he's in captivity. The Jews got so evil and wicked, God said, you don't listen to prophets, you don't pay any attention to me, I'm going to send you to Babylon for 70 years. You see, on Wednesday night we have a little red chair. And if you're really bad, you sit on the red chair. We had one kid, he came to start on the red chair. I'm going to sit here anyway because I know it'll be bad. So he just got on the red chair before he even started. Knew that's where he'd be. Red chair is the punish chair, timeout chair, whatever you want to call it. And God said, okay, I'm going to take you to and put you on the red chair. 70 years you're going to be in Babylon. Then what? Well, I'm going to bring you back. Hopefully you'll learn your lesson. And you know they did. They sat on that red chair for 70 years, and they never, ever, ever again had trouble with idolatry. Not one time did they ever go back to that. They learned their lesson. That was good, but they didn't make them really pliable to God, but they learned that one lesson. So Daniel is in captivity. And he said, oh Lord, what's going to happen? He had read his Bible. It was an amazing thing. He read Jeremiah. And I don't know if he had read Jeremiah before or not, but Jeremiah was just a generation older or so than Daniel did. He said, I found in the book of Daniel that it said 70 years we're going to be here, and it's almost up. What about it, God? And so God sent a winged angel all the way from heaven to earth to inform Daniel what was going on. But Daniel prayed and he prayed and he prayed. And he prayed for 3 weeks. And he got no answer. And finally, an angel showed up. And the angel said, you know what? I was sent when you prayed the first time. But when I came from heaven to earth, there was an angel of Persia that met me, some demonic power. And we have fought for the last 3 weeks. And the reason I got it because Michael came out, the big archangel. He said, all right, he got that angel all the way, and I got to come to him. And I leave, I got to fight all the way back to heaven. I don't understand all that. But there's great opposition. And you can't play around Christianity because there's a devil, and he's sure enough real, and his demons are sure enough going to try to get your soul. You better really pay attention to your life because the devil is real. And he wants to get a hold of us. Like that angel fought all the way down and said, Daniel, I've got this news. You're going to go back. I want to tell you something else. The Messiah is going to come for sure. Oh, great. Well, what's the deal? Well, he said it's a 70-week deal. But now 70 weeks didn't do anything. Like, it's a year and a half. Didn't do anything. But prophetic time often is a day represents a year. That in Ezekiel. And so that 7 times 7 is 490. 490 years, in other words, from wherever this starts to where the Messiah comes. And this is chapter 9 of Daniel. Daniel said, well, what do you mean? He said, You know you're going to go back to Jerusalem and start rebuilding. Now, when you start rebuilding, mark that as day one. And count 483 years, and the Messiah will come. That's amazing. God put his neck out. I can tell you when he's going to come. And you know, when you start thinking from BC to AD, you came right here, this year, the next to the last week, or last 7 years, 483 years, came to the very year of Jesus' baptism. That's when he started his ministry, right? The Messiah will be evident. Now, what was he doing before that? Well, he was working the carpenter shop, helping his mom, obeying, taking care of the kids, whatever he did. And finally, at 30 years of age, he walked away from Nazareth and he went down to John the Baptist and was baptized and was then tempted. And then he started his ministry, gathered the disciples, and that was the year marked by Daniel's prophecy that he got. But Daniel also was told this, in the middle of the next 7 years, he will be cut off. How long was Jesus' ministry? 3.5 years. God's calling the shots. But let me realize this with you, that Daniel never saw this. This happened after Daniel was gone, and there was still almost 500 years to go. We wind the clock again. We go down to Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, and Malachi says he's still coming. I haven't forgotten him. You know, we're another couple of years from Daniel, still on board. We're still on track. Well, I want to tell you something else. I'm going to send before him a messenger. He'll remind you of Elijah. Elijah, you know, war 11. Elijah was a tough guy. This guy's going to be kind of tough like that, and he will have that kind of a message. And he's going to proclaim the message of the Lord before it comes. And exactly that happened. And then we have 400 years of nothing. Silence. Isn't that something? How God works? He wants you to believe Him and trust Him, no matter whether you understand it or not, or know how it's going to be. But just trust God to know it's going to be fine. He's going to take care of that. And then what happened? Well, after all of that, it became really fast. And the last part we're talking about today is how we've been stretching out hundreds, 500s of years, and all of a sudden, wow, it came together fast. Within just a few months, it all came together. God may work fast, you never know. But He's going to work. You see, there was a priest named Zacharias. Zacharias, they kind of drew straws, sort of like what job he got to do. He got the job of burning incense, which meant that he got to go into the holy place. Not Holy of Holies, but the holy place. Not everybody got, only priests go in there anyway, but not every priest could go in. It was his duty to take the incense and put it in his burner and burn incense to God. That was his job. It wasn't exactly difficult, but it was something wonderful to do and a privilege to be able to serve God. Incense kind of reminded people a little bit of prayer, sort of, in the Scripture. And while he was busy doing this, he heard an angel talk to him right there in church. Did you know that you might get a message in church that's going to happen? You ever think about that? You might get an inspiration. You might get something to help your soul. You never know what you're going to find in church. You might find something that will transform your life. You never know. It happened to him. He had hundreds of years, and all of a sudden the angel said, Zacharias, I've been hearing your prayer. You know the prayer for a child? You're going to have a child. He's going to be a boy, and it's going to be named John. Well, how will that be? We're all people. Well, the angel said, I'll tell you how you're going to know it. You won't say a word till he's born. And he became mute. Couldn't say a word. Now, he went home, trying to tell him what was, and I suppose they figured out, how would you tell if you walked up, an angel talked to me? That would you tell him? Can you picture John? I mean, he had to walk out and show them somehow that an angel appeared to him. And they wrote stuff down. And can you imagine that? That old man, I wondered about him. He came out of the temple, he said an angel talked to him. What do you think? And you know what began to happen? A little child began to grow. Elizabeth, his wife. Wow. Did you hear the news? Elizabeth was it. Oh, Elizabeth? Yeah, old Elizabeth. well, what do you know? Well, that's exactly what Malachi said would happen. And so she was about 6 months along. Now, we're short time to get, you see. 6 months, not very long in time. And there is a lady, a young girl, perhaps a teenager, who's thinking about marriage. She always said yes to the proposal, and she's getting things together. They're going to get married soon. An angel appears to her and said, Mary, the Lord really loves you. You're really a fine girl. What does the Lord want? Well, He wants you to have a child for Him. And we said the prophecy, He's going to be great. He's going to be the King of Israel. He'll never have an end of His kingdom. He'll reign forever and ever. All that prophecy for 4,000 years in just a few months, all coming together really quick. She said, I don't know how I could do this. Well, it's from the Lord. If the Lord wants to do it with me, He's got me. I belong to Him. And she said, fine. Told Joseph, I guess, what was happening. And Joseph said, I don't understand that or not. So Joseph was sitting there in his own place. They didn't shack up together. You understand the novelty of that? They were pure and perfect and trying to get their lives together and honor God. You understand how they were, just what they should have been, and it's marvelous. And he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'll just kind of tell the governor, the officials who have all this written down that I decided not to marry her after all. And he had that concluded. Tomorrow, I think I'll go down and tell him it's all off. An angel appeared to him. Don't be afraid of this. This is of God. She's just like she said. Marry her. And you take care of the baby. They'll come. And so he did. And, God then worked with the Roman Empire, and they moved them down so that by this time they could be together in the right place in Bethlehem for the birth. And the child was born. And we talked about this morning that how are they going to move, because it's written in Scripture, they won't stay in Bethlehem very long. The prophet said there's going to be a lot of weeping in Ramah, which was another way of term Bethlehem, because mothers will try to seek their children, but they won't be alive because they'll be dead, because the king will kill them. And we can't let Jesus be killed, and so the angel said, oh, you're going to have to move him. Hosea said, I had to call my son out of Egypt. It was predicted way before Jesus was born that he'd go to Egypt as a child. Whether you remember that or not as a child, I don't know. Probably not. Because they went over into Egypt, and about a year later, Herod died. That's what we heard about in Luke chapter 2. And his son then took over. He was as bad as Herod. And so the Lord said, you can come back because Herod's not there anymore. And Joseph said, would it be all right if we just went back home to Nazareth? That's about 70 miles from the kingdom, be safer. And God said, that's just fine. You go there. And things were speeding up because pretty soon Jesus is 12 in the temple, showing marvelous ability. Then he's 30, and he's baptized, begins ministry. Then he's 33, he dies on a cross. And then 3 days later, rose Christ from the dead. And in about 40 more days, he's gone. And it all has been accomplished. It took so long. And all of a sudden, then it went really fast. God is not dependent upon time in any way. God is not bound by calendars or clocks or hours or minutes. God has a master plan, and it may move slowly or it may move fast. You may find that in your life. It may be a long, long time for something, and then it happens really quick. You're like, wow, look how a piece of came together all of a sudden. You wouldn't all of a sudden exactly. God's been working a long time for that. But He has a plan for us. That's the marvelous thing. Now, when you think about it, what was the reaction to everyone that heard about the birth of this Christ? Except Herod. Joy. A new king? Good. Peace? Yes. Joy? Yeah. Wonderful. All the many blessings coming together in Him. It was a marvelous thing, and they were looking forward to what He was. And He made quite a change. It said in the 17th verse of John 3, almost 16th verse, God sent not His Son into the world to condemn the world. He could have done that. He could do that with you too, you know that. He would walk down every street and say, who lives here? So-and-so, it's all her, don't want him, the kids. And the next house, who lives here? So-and-so, and He knows all of that. He knows everybody. He knows all about you. He knows who you are and what you are, and he could have come along if he wanted to and condemned everyone. Here's my 12 apostles. You know what's wrong with Peter? Well, he's got a big mouth, and he cusses once in a while. And you know what's wrong with Judas? He's a thief. And you know, and he could have gone down the line and said, here's what's wrong with all of them. But Jesus, amazingly, did not come to condemn. Nor does he want to condemn you yet. So he says, what's going to happen to this one or that one? What do you think? Will they go to heaven or not? That's not my job, not my call. But I know Jesus didn't come for them to be lost. He came for them to be saved. He came for them to change their lives. He didn't come to condemn a woman caught in adultery. He came to straighten her up. He didn't come to tell a tax collector how bad he was and he was really awful and going to go to hell because he's so terrible to other people. He came to straighten old Zacchaeus up. He didn't come to tell how wicked this woman was that was crying on his feet. He came to forgive her sins. It's the only amazing thing about Jesus, isn't it? That though you would give up on someone, he does not. Though someone says, I'm so wicked, you're not that bad, he won't save you and redeem you. God sent his Son into the world, not to condemn it, that the world through him might be saved. What a great message. And that's the message we have today, is that God worked all these many years to save the world. That was his master plan. You're part of it. You don't deserve it, nor do I. But his master plan was that he would send Christ to forgive us of our sins through the death on the cross, so that we can be forever in heaven with him and enjoy the joys of God and all that pertains to him eternally. But we'll have to make a decision if that's the way it's going to be. He asked us to choose him rather than something or someone else. And that's where the choice comes down to. He loved us that much. Paul said, you know, I kind of hang my head in shame. I was the worst of all sinners, but look what he's done for me. Oh, I'm so glad that he redeemed me. The most joyful thing that we've ever heard in our whole life should be the message that Christ came not to condemn us, that the world through him might be saved. Christians do a lot of condemning, and we need to tell people what is wrong, and we need to understand what the Scripture says about evil. But our whole message is we didn't come to condemn. We came so you know what to do that's right. Like a doctor. He don't want to tell you what's wrong with you just so here's what we're going to do about it. Here's how we want to redeem you and make you what you should be. But we've got to make a choice. And so our song that we have chosen has that opportunity to make a choice, to serve him, to follow him, to be what we ought to be in his sight. Jesus walked this earth with the kind of steps that we need to follow. 470. And Lord, we want to follow you. I want to follow you wherever you go. I'll follow you when you tell me how to be saved. I'll follow you how to live a Christian life. I'll follow you how to live my life like you want to live it. Lord, help me to follow you. He didn't come just to be thought about and string up some lights and then it's all over and forget him. He came to be remembered, to serve, and follow. So that's our decision. As we sing the first stanza, 470. So